Well, Couch Critics, I hope you're well. I'm terrible. Well, I'm actually Brad, and I'm joined by Sogg. Welcome to our weekly chat, and of course, you're here. You want to hear us talk about the Sydney Derby. Yeah, Samuel, you must be a happy little bugger right now.
Look, I'm going to enjoy a
Oh, hitting up
wine.
the
This is
wines.
it's a, it's going to be a lovely chat, Bradley. I've been looking forward to this one just just all week.
I've got some air duster right here, and it tells me it's um keep away from heat. Do not, yeah, don't put in mouth. All right, well. Yeah,
That's
no, no.
all Wanderers fans after that result.
Yeah, it was something else, that's for sure. Well, thanks for joining us in this eulogy for the Wanderers season. Um, as I said, I'm Brad and I'm joined by Sog. Thanks for joining us. Hit us up with a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and let us know how you're going in the comments and what you thought of Saturday night's derby. But before we chat the Sydney derby, I guess we've got to get away with it. Friday night, Adelaide beat Wellington so long ago. What was it? Was it 3-0?
Yeah, smashed them.
Yeah, which like I thought they'd win, but boy, they oh sorry, it was 2-0. Two
2-0.
goals from Craig Goodwin. I thought they'd been travelling a bit poor of late, and I thought, this might be a game they might slip up in, but they got the job done with not too much ease. Oh,
They
with
kind
ease.
of went back to looking like the Adelaide before the last month.
Mm.
That was the worry, and I predicted Wellington would
Mm.
snatch a win. But no, Adelaide they were dominant in this match. Really good performance.
Yep. Craig Goodwin with 2 goals, a penalty as well. So he's really aging like fine wine, Craig Goodwin, and I'm sure he'll be one of those key men at the Asian Cup at the start of next year. Not much else to talk about that one. They're going to go play Central Coast over 2 legs, which I think is going to be an absolutely fantastic two-legged time. Sure, we'll talk a little bit about it at the end of this little chat. But let's get into the big one. What everyone probably wants us to talk about is Saturday night between the Western Sydney Wanderers and Sydney FC, the first ever Sydney derby in the A-League finals. We did have a semi-final in the Australia Cup quite some time ago, but yeah, this was a game that neither of us were at. I wasn't boycotting. I was at a wedding, and I'm sure I would have been there had I not been at that wedding. And Samuel, I think you told me you're asleep or something like that.
My wife was asleep, and yes, I woke her up throughout that night.
Yeah.
It's pretty early, but yes, yeah, I wasn't there either, but it looked electric. Like just what was happening on the pitch. It was a really tense game. Bradley, you're not even wearing a Wanderers shirt tonight. You just not you've not
Well, I
turned.
didn't wear one. I didn't wear one last week because, like, I couldn't be bothered changing. But I'm not gonna bother and go change halfway through. But
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
what a
it's
game! Yeah, I think from a neutral's perspective, I think that was probably a fantastic display of what the A League can do in terms of entertainment. We had a cracking crowd. I think the second biggest ever crowd for a Sydney derby at that venue.
yeah,
Even with the Cove boycotting, and I guess the junior or the up and coming Cove members or whatever you want to call them, the fans that were there, they did quite well. I think all around it was crowd was fantastic from all
hmm,
reports, and seeing that photo of the whole RBB march to the stadium, I think that was awesome as well. I think
yeah,
just from a neutral's perspective, I don't think you could have asked for a more drama filled game. And the Wanderers taking a 1-0 lead with Morgan Schneiderlin scoring from the penalty spot, and then Sydney FC coming back to win 2-1 in the second half.
mm,
I probably watched about the first 5 minutes on my phone at the wedding, and then on the drive home, I listened to the second half on the radio, and you don't want to use the cliche, but I think we're going to say it did really seem like a tale of two halves. It was very different. Samuel, I guess your take. We'll talk about the first half. All your thoughts on the first half, because from what I read and from the bits and pieces I watched, I thought it was quite evenly matched. Maybe just edged it. We probably did because we led 1-0 at the break. But your thoughts on that
mm.
first half?
Yeah. I wouldn't say that it was completely opposite first and second half, but first half was much more even,
Mm,
whereas the second half was pretty much predominantly Sydney. But yeah, I think that's right. Even without the goal, Wanderers probably had the better opportunities. Marcelo had
mm,
a gilt-edged chance off his head, um, and just missed his header. Is all you can say. Like uncharacteristically lost his head. Oh no,
mm,
that's characteristic for Marcelo. But no, but Marcelo probably should have put that one away.
mm,
And then Ninkovic from the top of the box with a volley that Redmayne really has to reach to push
mm,
over. Um, but it was you could see the teams feeling each other out. Like I called last week, I said that probably the way Wanderers would score goals against Sydney was sitting back, allowing Sydney to have possession and then catching them on the counter. And that's exactly how the
mm,
goal came about, how the penalty came about. Callum Neuenhoff, yeah, bursting down that right hand side, great move. Um, and it's an unlucky handball,
mm.
but I think it was the right decision. It's handball.
And I think it
But
tells from Wilkinson. It was
interpretation.
Wilkinson, wasn't it? His reaction
Yeah,
was
yeah, that's right.
no
He
argument,
doesn't
really.
he doesn't argue. You can just see the laugh on his face. He's like, I can't do anything about that. It takes a deflection off Bratton. He's already turned his body, which is why
Mm,
the arm goes out.
mm,
But it just kind of strikes him. Again, I thought anything above like sleeve mark was, that grey area, but because it hits him definitely on the sleeve of, but it's a handball.
mm,
They're given now. And Schneiderlin does well. I think that's the best penalty against Redmayne's wobbles is because he's committed to going away, and that's what he
mm,
uses the momentum of the jumping. And so if you hit it down the middle,
mm,
unless you do a Brendan Sanderlab dink, it's pretty hard for him to read that. And so
mm,
it was a good penalty. Wanderers probably feeling pretty happy
mm.
at halftime because yeah, there wasn't too much in it really.
Yeah.
It was quite close for both teams. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for me, the second half at least, listening on the radio, it just seemed like the Wanderers didn't really come out after halftime. I don't really know what Rudin told his players, but it really seemed like they were sitting back way more than they were before, and they were just inviting way too much pressure. And
Mm.
fair credit to them. They got the first goal was a really poor clearance from Traore. Who
Hmm.
scored that? It wasn't Lafondra, was it?
Robbie
It
Mack.
was Robert Mack,
Yeah.
yes. And I think, that's just a poor clearance. You either take it out for a corner or you take it out on the sideline, and he cleared it right into his feet. So that wasn't a very good clearance. And then the second goal, Lafondra, I think just another goal conceding from the corner, which isn't great. But you know what? They deserve the result. Like, they dominated the second half. They created plenty of chances, and I just, there's no real argument. I wish I could have a complaint to say about, a dodgy call or us dominating the game and not scoring. But, we saved our worst performance of the season for that second 45 minutes. And I think that's what's
Mhm.
really disappointing. I think if you go watch the RBTV show, one of the boys said, if the boys went out there and gave it all they had for that 45 minutes and lost, I think we'd go, well, we did our best. We did not
Yeah.
do our best. We played the worst we have all season. I think that's what's really disappointing about the loss, because we played really well this season. And at times, I've seen the potential we could finish a lot higher. I think we should have finished second the way we played this season. We shouldn't have even been playing this game, but it doesn't matter. We were slacked off at certain times, and yeah, it was just really disappointing considering
Yeah,
how well we could have finished this year.
it's definitely shades of that match against Perth. You've brought it up a couple of times on the podcast, like that game against Perth.
Yeah, but like we dominated that game, and we probably should have put it to bed.
Yep.
And I look at that Sydney FC game and think, well, we're our own worst enemy. Sydney FC deserved it for sure. We showed them way too much respect.
Yeah, look, I think it was happening in the first half, but in the second half, it was really stark.
Mm,
Um, Sydney FC worked really hard in the midfield to lock down
mm,
Ninkovic and to lock down Brandon Barello.
mm,
I don't,
Yeah, they were
I
double.
don't.
They had two men on him at a time at stages. I remember
Yeah,
the commentators saying, and fair credit, those are the players you want to shut down. They've been our mate men
well,
this year.
that's right. And so I think the game plan from Sydney was right. And you talk about the first goal coming from a poor clearance from Traore, and yeah, maybe he makes a better decision, but that comes after it's in the 60th minute.
Yeah, relentless pressure.
Yeah, it comes after 15, 20 minutes of just full on pressure from Sydney FC.
Mm,
They were really dominating. They'd had some chances already before
mm,
that. And
mm.
so it was that constant pressure. And when you're under the pump, that's when those mistakes do come in. And to his credit, Robbie Mack still had a heap to do.
Yeah.
Like his touch has been fantastic all season. That's one of the things I've just really noticed and been impressed with Robbie Mack. No matter how a ball's pinged into him, he can drop it dead.
Mm,
The touch is good, and then the fake shot that sends two defenders the wrong way, and then to still have the guts to put it across the keeper. Lawrence Thomas gets a hand to it, but it's just too quick. Like it's a fantastic goal for Sydney FC. It's top class. It's what you want in a finals match.
mm.
Just a side note here. Any Euro snobs who say the A League has no quality, just watch that goal because
Watch
I
that
don't know how you
game.
can watch it. Yeah, I don't know how you can watch it and say that's not top class football. Like fantastic. The second
Mm.
one, Wanderers haven't conceded from corners all that much, and you're talking about what has Rudan said to them at halftime. I think Wanderers genuinely believed, and like we said last week, their defense is one of the best in the leagues. That I think they probably backed themselves to defend that game, to hold it out for a 1-0, catch another goal on the counter. But they just Sydney closed down any outlet chance they had,
Mm.
and really just smothered them and created those goals. Marcelo again had a chance in that second half though. Free kick whipped in on his head.
Mm.
Um, yeah, just I can't believe that was panic stations for Sydney, and he's missed another one. So he'll look back at that and probably be quite disappointed with those two real big opportunities to win the game.
We
Um,
talk about big opportunities. Like
mm.
your centre back shouldn't be the one having the two biggest opportunities of the game. It should
and,
be you
and I
guys
think
up
that's
front.
it. Well, Wanderers, that's it. The one goal comes from a penalty.
Hmm.
Outside of that, there's the Ninkovic volley from the top of the box and the two Marcelo headers. They're the clear-cut opportunities for the Wanderers,
Hmm.
and I think that tells you something about Sydney's defense.
Yeah.
Since Rodwell has come into the side, it's a totally different beast, and they look a lot more assured. Joel
Hmm.
King, um, he managed with Leuni.
Hmm.
So you look at as a really good second half from Sydney, and some real misfiring from the
Hmm.
Wanderers, and
Yeah, I don't think we've talked too much about Rodwell this year because he's barely played, but I think
yeah.
no one ever doubted his ability. It's always
Mhm.
about getting him fit. And that was his problem with the Wanderers. Every time he was on the field, I thought this is the best player on the field. But he was
Yeah.
just so unfit, injured all the time. And hats off to him. He's gotten fit again.
Mm.
He's doing
Yeah.
well. And I think that's all I ever wanted from the Wanderers, and I'm glad to see him doing that. No, I've got nothing against him. He played half a season with us. Good on him.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
talking about former
it's
players,
not
you
where
want
the
to talk
drama
about
finishes, is
Ninkovic?
it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think there's drama before that. So there was the incident in the match. Ryan Grant makes a tackle. Brandon Barello gets a little bit heated, and there's handbags at 50 paces. All of a sudden, Brandon Barello's shirt's stretched all around his neck. Kind of it heated up at a point there. Sydney go on to score two goals, and then at full time, Ryan Grant, Sydney blew through and through, blew and through. He obviously he revs things up a
Mm,
little bit. Robbie Mack, after getting the assist for La Fondres,
mm,
is doing these ones to the fans. There was the heat of a derby,
yeah.
and those things you kind of expect.
Mm,
It did boil over a little bit, and then we get the scenes from inside the change rooms afterwards. Ninkovic, no wonder his shirt on. To his credit, he didn't
mm,
go in the red and black,
mm,
but goes in and shakes hands with a couple of the Sydney FC players, kind of goes around,
Mm.
and then all of a sudden he's getting frog marched out of there with awesome meme
But
potential.
yeah, yeah, how good.
Yeah, Bradley, what do you think's going on there? Well, like, what's
Oh,
happened?
well, I think he's just gone in to congratulate his old team. Well, some of his old teammates. I think he spoke in all the issues with his move to the Wanderers. I think he's made it very clear that he still loves the club and he's got mates there. And I think it's always been quite clear his issue was with Steve Corica. And so I think, some of the reactions, people shaking hands, I think it was not too much of an issue until, well, we don't know what's happened off the camera. And I assume we'll find out on Thursday night when the
Yeah.
Keep Up show comes out what exactly happened. And I reckon words have been exchanged between Corica and Ninkovic. And, I think that's what it is. A lot of Wanderers fans are peeved that he went in there and shaked hands with all the players. I guess I am, but I don't really care. Like, the season's done. Like, still feeling bummed about the loss. And yeah, he probably shouldn't have done it. No, it's not cricket where they do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's like you probably get away with it in other games, but just because it's the derby, just because it means so much and the passion
Yeah.
and the rivalry, I can understand people's frustrations about him going in and wanting to shake hands with the enemy. So it'll be interesting to see what happens Thursday night because I'm sure that's when we're going to find out what's happened. But I can no doubt imagine words have been exchanged between Ninkovic and Corican. Who started it? I'm biased, and I'd probably imagine Steve Corica told him where he can shove it.
Yeah,
But
and look,
who
that's
knows? Who
what
knows?
that so kind of Rudan saying Corica said something on the sideline while the match was still going.
Yeah,
And
but like coaches do that all the time.
yeah, that's
Opposition
right.
players, like, and players do it to each other. So
I maybe I'm slightly cynical. Maybe I think Ninkovic, you know, the going in to say hello to the teammates was a guise for actually then going. I wonder if he's looking for something again. Like I said, Thursday might reveal, but I wonder if he's going into to look for an argument with Corica. Maybe yeah, it's probably Corica has told him where to shove it, and it doesn't look pretty. And it's the kind of thing like look, you know,
just adds to the rivalry.
we it's what we kind of want. Like, let's be honest, that the Sydney Derby, it's the greatest in Australian football. Like
Yeah,
the Melbourne Derby doesn't really hit what the Sydney
yeah.
Derby does.
Like
Like
Western United and Melbourne City just doesn't do it for me. Like,
just the way the whole city, Sydney, the east and the west. It's kind of
mm,
people at work. It's the teams. Like everything about it is so good and marketable. It really does hold up the A League at times, and you look at the attendances it
mm,
gets, the coverage it gets. Um, you can't artificially create more of those. Looking at you, Weston.
and
But
MacArthur.
and MacArthur. That being said, like I don't know, you can tell from people watching at home. Bradley and I, we're mates. One's red, one's blue, but it's never actually. We can still do this podcast afterwards. We're not going to be calling each other names or anything. Like Brad is a massive loser, but so is his team, so it matches him.
Hashtag
But
loser. I've been embracing the scab tag for the past week, so I'll embrace another title. So why not?
that's it. Yeah, but we can get along, and to a degree, you go, yeah, can the players get along? Should Ninkovic be doing that out on the pitch? Had he already done it? Like, is he going for a fight? Can they be mates? I don't know.
I don't
I
think
think
Ninkovic and Corica can be mates. I think
no, I don't think they
that's quite
can.
clear.
My big takeaway, I guess, what I'm left feeling, and it's, I think I feel the same way I did when it was announced that he was joining the Wanderers. It just the whole situation just kind of sucks. Like because as much as I'd love to hate Ninkovic because of everything that's happened this year, the truth is I spent 7 years idolizing the guy, thinking he was the best football player Australia had ever seen
Mm.
here. Uh, I finally got a photo with him in what was the last game he ever played for Sydney. Like I spend so much energy on loving the guy, and so I don't hate what he's done. It just kind of bums me out, man. It just like seeing him frog marched out. As much as it's a great meme, I just I feel sorry for the guy because all he's done is just burn bridges and
Yeah.
be left in the fire. And he's come out the loser because Sydney FC have won. And all it does is vindicated the Sydney side of things and
Mm.
made him look like a bit of a fool. Like
Mm.
he's had a pretty good season. He played more this season for Wanderers than he did last season for
Mm.
Sydney.
I think he's been a great
It's just
pickup for us. I thought
ab-
I took him for the
absolutely.
meme value, but
Yeah, yeah.
he's actually been a quality cog in the midfield. And I thought at 37, 38, however old he's just said, oh, he'll bugger himself halfway through the season. He hasn't. And
Yeah.
even at his age and his injury proneness, he's still putting
Yeah.
great shifts. And yeah, I think
He, he's
it's,
a
yeah,
he's a brilliant footballer. And I just think, yeah, it's really sad. He could have stayed at Sydney and things would have been fine.
well,
He could have
I
gone to
think he was very
Macarthur.
clear he wanted to stay at Sydney,
Yeah.
but clearly something's happened.
He could have gone to Macarthur and and he wouldn't have this hatred. He wouldn't have this like at the end of the day, it just kind of sucks for him because he made his choice.
Yeah,
And as far as Sydney are concerned, it's like, well, go and lie in it now. And maybe he's finding that a little difficult.
yeah. I think it'll still be interesting Thursday night to see what happens there because I think that'll give a little bit more context
Yeah.
to it all. Um, but it'll be
Maybe it
interesting, I
might.
think.
Maybe that's all we get. It's just him getting frog marched out, a bit of argy bargy, and see you later. Like the
Yeah.
Sydney players, after it happens, no one gets in to aid him. It's
Mm.
the two coaches walking him out, and everyone else is just kind of sitting there going, awkward. Yeah.
Mm.
Whether or not that's because Corica's just, combusted or something. But
Yeah.
anyway, maybe we should leave that there because it's done. And Sydney FC take on Melbourne City Friday night in the
Yeah.
first leg of the semi-final. Now,
And the
what do you make of
Cove will
this?
be there.
The code will be there, apparently, or
Yeah.
subject to APL releasing a statement. They said,
Which they have done this afternoon.
yeah, mate. We can dive into this. Did the Cove boycott put pressure on the APL to pull their fingers out and get these things done a little bit earlier, which is what the original boycotts were all about in the
Mm.
first place, and why Sydney decided to boycott
Mm.
the elimination final because nothing had happened, and now it has.
Mm.
So is it justified for them to end the boycott, or is it just them backflipping because hey, we didn't think we were going to beat the Wanderers, so it kind of suited, and oh, we did, and actually we beat City at home, so we look pretty good. Maybe we got to, who knows? The APL has met with them and chatted to them and the City Terrace, and so I don't know, like it or lump it, even without the active,
Mm.
they were pretty loud at times. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. But my question was actually going to be, what do you think of this two-legged semi-final setup? So obviously Mariners
Mm.
will um, be away to Adelaide and then host the return
Mm.
leg, and Melbourne travel to Sydney and
Mm.
then host the return leg. Two legs to get
Mm.
into the final. Some people I've heard have said, is it kind of unfair that first and second have to have a two-legged game to get
Yeah.
into a.
Yeah. I don't mind the two-legged games. I think my issue is the format itself. So when we first went to a 16 final format, I really liked it that 1v2 was played over 2 legs, and the winner of that would progress to the final. Currently, under this system, the top two don't get a second chance. The top two
Yeah.
can not appear in the grand final. For me, I just think that's unfair. I think there's got to be some reward to finishing higher on the ladder, and currently there's not. It's just you get a week off. It's all based on seeding, and so I think my issue is not necessarily the 2 legs; it's the final format itself. I would
Mm.
like a top five. There's a format that the NRL used to do in the 80s where number one would have the week off, two play three. The winner of that would play 1. The winner of that would go to the grand final. 4 play 5, play the loser of 2v3, and they fight over that last spot. But I still think we should be going back to the top 6 format that we had when we first went to top 6 in 08, 09, or when North Queensland and Gold Coast joined originally. I don't mind 2 legs. It adds a bit more drama to it, but it does seem a bit odd that like the top 2 have to go away first. And that's where the most damage could happen. But
yeah,
then,
I think that's so that you get the
in that final match
team for when you actually qualify, or
Yeah.
you know what you've got to do in front of your own fans, which I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you. It's kind of weird that they don't get maybe they get a second chance in that it's a 2-legged game. So if they don't turn up away from home, at least they've got the home match to rectify things. But yeah, it is interesting that yes, both City and Central Coast could lose, and we could have an Adelaide versus Sydney grand final, which would be 3 versus 5 in the final. That would be quite interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting like that. Yeah, like I said, I want the old format. I think that's my big issue. 2 legs, I don't really care. I think, an extra week of the finals, a bit more, an extra week of the season, a couple more games to enjoy this season. And I think that'd be great. I think the Adelaide Central Coast 2-leg games, they're going to be absolutely cracking.
Yeah.
It could be 7-all on aggregate. Who knows? And I think that'll be real. I think they'll get some good crowds for that. I think that'll be really exciting. And I guess who are we going to pick? Are we just going to do a week 1 tip, or are we just going to tip who we think is going to win over the 2 legs?
Yeah, no, let's do week 1 pick, and then we've got something to talk about next week as well.
Yeah, okay. Well, the Friday night game is Sydney FC hosting Melbourne City at the Sydney Football Stadium.
That's right.
How are you feeling going into this, Samuel? Because I feel, didn't Robin Mack and Joe Lolly pick up injuries?
Yeah, Robbie Mack had kind of had an injury.
Joe Lolly only came on for like 5 minutes, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so. So the Robin Mack situation, was injured the second last week, so he didn't play the last game of the season against Jets. Adrian Segacic played instead, and he came in fit. To be fair, like 75 minutes has been his kind of average all season. I think he pulled up a little bit after just crazily celebrating the Lafondra winner. I think he'll be fine. I think he's been managing it, so I don't think there's any issues around him. Joe Lolly, obviously injured, which is why he didn't start against Wanderers. He came on. He didn't look great. Was still strapped up, but he'd passed his fitness test. They were happy for him to go onto the pitch. And as soon as Sydney scored that second goal, they believed, yep, we've got this. So they pulled him not because of any injury, but because, well, we don't need you anymore. We're safe. We're through. Let's rest you up.
Yeah,
so
it was strange.
Odd,
yeah,
very odd. But I think that's what Sydney at least are saying. That once we score that second, we're through. No point in risking him anymore. In fact, maybe the Wanderers go out to hurt if they know the season's over. So pull him, save him. I don't know if he'll start this weekend against City. You would think
I wouldn't start him.
They're going to do everything they can to get him to. But given that there's a second leg, maybe it's better to leave him off for the first half and save him. Although I would love to see Adrian Segacic playing instead of pushing Caceres out wide and putting Retre on. Put Segacic out wide, leave Caceres and Max in the center. Like, it just works so much better.
Yeah, no, he's a really handy player you got there in Segacic. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him play for the Wanderers next season.
And Kaczarski can come back now. He's served his suspension. So that's good.
So what do you reckon? What do you reckon the result's going to be?
Yeah, look, early in the season, Sydney did really well. We're looking hot. I think Sydney win the home leg 2-1.
Really? Yeah, I was going to go for a 1-1 draw. So
okay,
there we go. I think it'll be. Yeah, I think it'll definitely help having the Cove back at the game. How big of an attendance they will get, who knows? I don't think they'll get much of an away support. But yeah, I reckon it'll be close. I think though, anyway, we'll talk about next week's tips later on. But Adelaide and Central Coast on the Saturday night, Adelaide hosting at Hindmarsh Stadium against the Mariners. 3rd v 2nd. Lost
Mm.
at 4-1 to the Mariners on the final game of
Yeah,
the
that was
regular
wild.
season at this same venue. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a similar scoreline.
Was that at Adelaide? That I thought that was at
Yeah, it
Gosford.
was at Adelaide.
Wow. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, this could be. I'm going to go for a 3-3 draw. I think it's going to
Real,
be
wow.
absolute blockbuster.
I'm going to go
And
3-1 Mariners.
yeah, wow. Um, just quickly, I was saying that anything under 14K would have been a bit upsetting for Adelaide's attendance at Hindmarsh, and they cracked 10,000 again, so we can't be disappointed. But
Mm.
surely they get more than 10,000 to now a semi-final at home.
Yeah, they should. I think the crowd last week, there might have been a mixture of, people upset over the final decision. I don't think
Yeah,
Adelaide United made any formal protests, so I don't know why they weren't ripped into. But I think there's probably an element of, probably that hanging over the
yeah.
fans that they're pretty disappointed. To be
Again,
fair,
I'd love to see it sell out. I'd love to see 14, 15,000
yeah.
people tune on Adelaide United
Mm. And with
against
the
the
news
Mariners.
coming out about the APL, I think about them agreeing to this fan representative group, I think that will hopefully sway a few. Listen, they just got over 9,000 at last year when they hosted a semi-final. Their last
Yep.
time before COVID in 2019, they had 13,000 against Melbourne City before they went on to draw 3-3 with Perth the next week in that crazy game. So the crowd isn't too out of place from where it's been
Yeah, no.
previous
Yeah.
seasons for them, but I would love to see it sell. I would definitely love to see a sell out at Goss for the next week. But yeah, I think it's going to be this two-legged. I wish these teams were in the grand final. It'd be an absolute banging match.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
It could be great. It's great to see him play off here. I think it's going to be a big match for like Marco Tullio has come into form.
mm,
He's been brilliant for the Mariners
mm,
recently. Jason Cummings has been great up front, leading the
mm.
line, and their defense has really looked solid.
Brian Kaltak has been one of the centre backs of the year.
But even like Jacob Farrell has
Mm,
been great. Um, their midfield is great.
yep. Nisbet.
Like yeah, Josh Nisbet has been just outstanding.
Mm.
Not upstanding. He's not that tall. Definitely outstanding though. But
If you can see
Adelaide
him.
again, Adelaide. Maybe they'll be buoyed by Ibasuki will be even fitter because Blackwood it just didn't quite cut it, even though they won 2-0.
Mm,
Craig Goodwin's back in form at the right time of the season.
yeah.
That's excellent for them. They've got quality over the park as well. So yeah, I think that's going to be fascinating. So yeah, I'll stick by it. 3-3. I think that's going to be
Yep.
a great advertisement for the A League, and that'll be on Channel 10 Bold.
I
Is that
think
right?
all the finals might be on bold if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, make sure that's a Saturday night game. Make sure you get around the finals. It'll be great to see them. And I think that's probably where we leave it because we're running out of time on our free Zoom session. So thanks for joining us. And let us know in the comments what you thought of this whole past week. Let us know what you thought of the derby. What you thought of Ninkovic. Boy, that was some real spice, wasn't it?
Yeah, send us your best memes. Go on, do it.
Yeah.
Just
And
add us on Twitter.
yeah, and let us know your predictions for this weekend's semi-finals.
Yep.
Leg one. Anyway, cool. Well, I think we're going to call it and leave it there. And we'll probably see you around this time next week for our preview and our wrap on the previous weeks. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
See ya.